Tember, tearless Tember, tearless Tember, tearless Tember. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to the next video of Tearless Tember. Today, we've got ourselves a rare replay games tier list. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up loving Rare. Even if the only game I had from them was Grabbed by the Ghoulies, I absolutely adored their writing style, their gaming philosophies, as I'll put it, and their unique style of whatever they tried, you know? And so when I saw Rare Replay up for $30 with 30 Rare games, it was a no-brainer to purchase, you know, because one of the great things about Rare is that they try all sorts of random things, and they do their best to make sure that it's the best it can be. You know, just looking at this list, we've got a digging-based game, we've got a action side-scroller with all sorts of random gameplay mechanics in it, and then we've got a sequel to a racing game they made. You know, it's all over the place, and it's great. I love it. But what are the best Rare Replay games? Well, it's about time I give you my opinion on that. So, let's begin with Jetpack. Jetpack was their very first game, and it's fun enough. It's basically just an arcadey, you know, collect as many points as possible while fueling up your spaceship, and that's kind of it. But it works as a simple first-timer game, you know? I'm not gonna say that this is incredible, but I don't think it's inherently bad. I would put this in bedtime gory because it's not amazingly fun. You know, dying in one hit to monsters that spawn on top of you isn't great, but it's fine. It's an enjoyable fun, you know, it's easy to get all the stamps for so you can unlock more stuff. That's great and all, but, you know, it's just okay. Next up, we have Lunar Jetpack. And while I was probably too nice to normal Jetpack, I will not be to Lunar Jetpack because I don't know how to play it. I've genuinely tried many times to understand what it is I'm even doing in this game, and I can't. So instead of learning, I won't. I'll just act like the Cuphead reviewer and say it's garbage, even though I haven't really played the game. Then we have a Tic Tac, which we move on from space games to random dungeon crawlers with bizarre gameplay mechanics. And this is another weird one. It's not the worst game I've ever played, far from it, but it's not great. It's incredibly difficult because not only do you take damage when you bump into enemies, but you also just slowly drain HP over time. That's a constant, and that sucks. But it's all right, I'll say. You know, I think exactly one time I was able to escape the mansion with the warrior, I think, but it's a very confusing game, and I never quite know where to go. But you know, sometimes I'll pop it back in just to try to get the stamps, you know, and that's worth something. I don't think it's inherently good, but I don't think it's awful like some other games are. Next we have Saberwolf, another one of those games where I just don't get what's going on. It's not quite as bad as Lunar Jetpack, where I know what the goal is, find the flowers, and I know what I need to do. Wander around until I do, you know, swing my sword and all that, but I don't get why I even have a sword when basically I can't use it on most creatures, you know, like the spiders. You can stab them, but that's about it. It's really annoying. I do think it would be fun to actually spend the time to learn and play this game, but as it currently stands, not great. I will give it this though. This Saberwolf, Underworld, Night Lore, and I think even Gunfright are part of a conjoined bit of lore, which is actually pretty crazy for these simple games. If I remember the lore correctly, the player character in Saberwolf tries to, track down a gem in the middle of the jungle, which leads to them getting bit by a werewolf, which turns them into a werewolf, so now they have to cure it. And then looking for the cure for that causes them to go to Hell, which is Underworld. And then Gunfight, I think, it's the first or the last entry, I forget exactly, but either it's the end of the timeline where after escaping Hell, he has to clean up the trash around his town that happened while he was gone, or it's the beginning of the timeline and it shows you who the character is beforehand. I could be mistaken on Gunfight being included, but yeah. Anyway, enough about lore. We're not talking about Night lore. We're talking about Underworld. And Underworld really is the tale of two games because it is painfully frustrating without cheats. You're just trying to hop around and explore and figure out what's going on. And then an enemy appeared from off the screen and bops you 4 screens away from where you currently were, and you fall, and die. That is annoying. But if you have cheats on, it becomes a lot more manageable because you can just turn off enemies, and that legitimately makes the game a lot more fun. It turns it into something like a Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, where all you have to do is wrap your head around the controls and make sure you don't fall too far, I think they should have stuck with simple controls, like just having Mario-esque jumping, which I think Mario was out at this time. They should have had either Mario-esque controls, and then you had to avoid the enemies, or there shouldn't have been enemies, and you should have just had to focus on platforming around with the wonky controls. Together, it's pretty trash, I will totally admit, but if we were including cheats, I would genuinely put this up with Jetpack as being a pretty good rage bait game, trying to understand the controls. Night lore. This is another one where I don't totally know what I'm doing. I'm pretty good at deciphering old video games, I beat Final Fantasy 1. I didn't even have a guide or anything, or I didn't use the internet. I somehow managed to beat that, so I can decipher undecipherable games. I don't know what the frick I'm doing in Night lore. Also, I don't even know why turning into a werewolf is a mechanic, because as far as I know, it doesn't do you anything. You're not like given an attack at night. You're not any more defensive at night. What I thought was happening was during the day there would be, NPCs that would be around, and maybe you could talk to them as the human, but as the werewolf they would be deadly. Instead, no, they're just always deadly, and that's really annoying. I'm gonna put Night lore at the bottom. It's not great. Now, Gunfight is awesome. It's still a incomprehensible late 80s, early 90s PC game, but you know what? It's pretty fun overall. The opening of the game to a 6-shooting minigame where you need to get as much money as possible so you can have enough supplies to not only track down and shoot the bounty, but it's really fun how it's kind of like a stock market almost. The prices of certain things will change over time, and you need to make sure to not spend so much money that you lose the game, but you also need to, also make sure that you can find the guy in time. And I like how the NPCs will point and tell you where to go. It's weird that you immediately die upon touching any of them, but you know what? It's a pretty fun yeehaw game. It is legitimately enjoyable. And then we have Slalom, which is... It's a slalom game. Literally, who cares? RC Pro AM. This game rocks. Because it's basically like a simulation game, but with tiny little racing cars. The reason why I call it a simulation ancestor is because one of the mechanics is that while you're racing around the game in a top-down format, which was apparently revolutionary at the time, you're collecting power-ups which permanently change your stats. So, depending on how you race, affects so many later races. Like, for instance, you may be willing to tank a second place or even third place in a race because you would have rather to swerve around to collect the power-ups to make sure that you moved faster or weren't as affected by terrain. And that is legitimately really cool. It's been called one of the best NES games of all time, according to Wikipedia, which, sure, I'll trust it. And honestly, I can see why. It's probably Rare's first legitimately great game. Then we have Cobra Triangle, which is bizarre? I don't quite know how to describe Cobra Triangle because it's just... You know those TV shows where it's like, we have these families participate in these 3 random trials? That's basically Cobra Trials, and I am not a fan. Snake Rattle and Roll, I'll be honest, is another one of those games I don't really get, but I am putting it one tier above the trash, because you get to play as a snakehead and bounce around eating spheres, and that's legitimately funny. Solar Jetman, another game that I don't fully get. I will say, though, it is impressive. It is impressive, I'll say, because it's cool, and the graphics are pretty great, and the fact that you can move in 360 degrees was probably revolutionary at the time. It's a very weird game, and I don't fully understand what I'm doing when I'm playing, but it's not the worst. It's certainly better than Lunar Jetpack, for what that's worth. Digger T Rock is a game that, I'll be honest, I kind of really got into Digger T Rock. Like, it's a weird NES game where you're a little boy digging around in holes and trying not to be murdered by skeletons, but it's fun, legitimately really fun to, you know, explore, use items. I think I remember hearing somewhere it was described as like Digger T Rock is basically like young Indiana Jones, and I can see that. I really did actually enjoy Digger T Rock. Then the infamous Battletoads, and oh my god, Battletoads is hard. I've never beaten it. I saw my brother. He beat the game, although he needed rewind to beat certain segments, and I tried to beat it without cheats, but legitimately, I don't know if a human being can beat the fire stage. If you know what I'm talking about, the fire plane stage, I don't know if that's humanly possible. If it is, wow, people are much better at this game than me. I cannot understate how important this game was, because Battletoads was a celebration of the NES basically at the end of its life. And so they tried and throwed everything at the wall. You know, there's side-scrolling beat-em-up stages, there's racing stages, there's snake riding, there's a bike segment that's really difficult because of the D-pad on the stupid controller, because the Xbox doesn't know what good controllers are. It is a bizarre title, but I really do enjoy Battletoads, and I've never beaten it, but I have to give it the highest regards because it's Battletoads. Second highest regards. But still, really, really good game. Next we have RC Pro Am 2, which is basically just RC Pro Am 1. It's basically the same game, but yeah, that's good. Then we have Battletoads Arcade. And Battletoads Arcade is It's weird, but I really like its weirdness. Battletoads Arcade is basically, what if we took the first game, focused primarily on the side-scrolling beat-em-up stages, and made it weirder. Like, it was already pretty weird in the first game, with the strange transformations your characters would change into whenever they did their super attack, but now, it's even weirder. Like, hey, let's make your dash attack, you summon, ram horns on your head. What if we actually turned your fists into a giant anvil? And as you can see right here, drill arm. Battletoads Arcade is awesome. I'll say that it is weirdly, like, suggestive. Like, look at the Dark Queen's design in Battletoads NES, and then her design in Battletoads Arcade. They were on something. There's also the werewolf characters, who you begin your pummeling grapple by grabbing them by the crotch, and then you proceed to pummel them in the crotch. That's weird, but I mean, is the British what you gonna do? They're from the Blighty. That's just how they roll over there, I presume. So, yeah, it is weird, and it's not as infamous as Battletoads, but I personally like Battletoads Arcade more than Battletoads. It's really good. Then we have Killer Instinct Gold. I'll be honest, I am trash at fighting games. I can't play them very well, you know, all that, like, I can kick your butt and smash, but if you ask me to do a quarter half circle and into like a F, A, B, Jabab, can't do any of that stuff. But I can still appreciate Killer Instinct Gold for being a phenomenal title and for having a rocking soundtrack. Seriously, if you've ever wondered what my outro music is, it's the main menu theme of Killer Instinct Gold. It is really good. Also, you can do some absolutely insane things. Like, it's funny to me because, like, when you think about, like, high combo attacks in, like, Mortal Kombat, for instance, it's usually just, like, a really spammy two-hit combo, you know? Low kick, uppercut, low kick, uppercut, low kick, uppercut, or freeze, punch, stuff like that. Killer Instinct Gold's stupidly huge combos, beautiful. They are a work of art. And then we have Blast Corps. I haven't played a whole lot of this game because it's kind of lame, but I do think that it's overall, it's okay. You know, it's not amazing or anything. I think this was their first official N64 game. Like, Killer Instinct Gold was technically a port from an arcade, and so this was their first, like, mainly developed for the N64 game. It's not to my liking, but it is pretty fun overall, you know? It's fun to blow stuff up. That's just a universal truth. Next we have Banjo-Kazooie, the old Baron Bird game. And there's a reason why this guy is in Smash and Jetpack isn't, you know? His game is legendary. It is really, really good. Like, I haven't beat it quite yet. I'm most of the way there. But once again, Rare excels in the variety because it's not just platform to the end. It's do this quest for this guy, or explore this area both from the ground and while flying. And let's not forget the constant string of new power-ups you can get, like the 2 different shoes Kazooie can wear, or the flying pads. It's really enjoyable being able to, you know, it's basically Mario 64, but better in every way, and the controls aren't turbo butt. Yeah, I said it. Next we have Jet Force Gemini, and this is a weird game. It's a third-person shooter with the weirdest controls ever. You want to know how you jump in this game? Do you want to know how you jump if you've never played it? Up on the right stick. And it only gets weirder from there. I want to play it more before I give a full definitive, like, is it good or is it not? It's very weird, but but I really do enjoy what I have played so far. Side note, I saw a really funny thing that just makes me really sad, because someone retweeted something Rare said celebrating its 40 years, where they commented asking for Rare to remake Jet Force Gemini and not make it woke. I don't quite know what to tell this guy about Jet Force Gemini, but as a reminder, the entire game is about two, I think, 13-year-olds and their dog, helping enslaved koalas from their slavery of ants. They're being enslaved by ants, trying to free them from that. I don't know, man, that sounds pretty woke to me, because as far as I am aware, woke is just thing I don't like that is not big, strong alpha male who saves everyone, and the girls are very lightly clothed and don't do much other than stand around. I think that's not woke, but like, buddy, the characters have crazy colored hair. This game is woke. Next up, we have Perfect Dark. And ooh. See, one of the biggest things on the N64 that people still talk about to this day is GoldenEye 007. And people love this game. They absolutely adore it, to the point where this was a licensed game that is actively speedran to this day, very competitively, and they forced Nintendo, of all companies, to put out a modernized port of it. Perfect Dark is, to me at least, Perfect Dark is GoldenEye, but even better. Not just because for the longest time, Perfect Dark, the version in Rare Replay, has, modernized controls with the left stick moving and the right stick, looking around. By the way, I don't know if you've ever, actually played the original N64 version of GoldenEye, but if you have, its control scheme is so weird, because on the left stick, you have forward and backwards. On the right stick, you have left and right, and on the left stick, you have look left, look right, and on the right stick, you have look up and look down. It is mind-meltingly confusing, and I think Perfect Dark had that same control scheme back on the N64, so being able to play a game with normal controls, it's already a boon. But Perfect Dark is not only does it have that whole spy aspect that the James Bond game had, with the things like the Invisibles and all sorts of wild different guns like sniper rifles and machine guns, but you've got some cool weapons too. You've got alien weapons that can see through walls. You've got a machine gun that can just empty its mag with a single pull of the trigger. It's not amazing by today's standards, but when looking at it as a product of its time, it is really good. I really like Perfect Dark, and I think that it is still a game that is worth going back to and playing, even if it's just to complete the story mode. Plus, speaking of the story mode, there's the fact that there's technically 3 different versions of it, depending on what difficulty you play on, where, in the lowest tier difficulty, you usually just have to get to the end, but as you extend the difficulty more, it's not just, oh yeah, enemies deal more damage and you take more damage. No. There's bonus objectives you have to complete. Something I can think of off the top of my head is that in the first mission, you just got to get to the bottom of the building. That's all you have to do. But then, as the difficulty gets harder, you also have to hack a certain computer, or you need to get this important information. On the hardest difficulty, there's a specific segment where you need to lead a guy to a specific computer, and he'll hack into the information for you. If you let him hack for too long, he'll delete the data instead, so you need to wait for him to get the data out, and then knock him out mid-interaction, so he doesn't delete the data. And that's awesome! Perfect Dark is really good. Next up we have Banjo-Tooie. And, it is weird. I think this is the moment when rares throw everything at the wall kind of bit them in the butt, because it's so off the wall, it's hard to even describe, you know, because like even in one of the first few missions is like a first-person shooter mode, and it reminds me a bit of Spyro, the third game, but not quite as good as that, I'll say. It is... I'll put it in Gone to Pot, because it is interesting, but some of that interesting is not a good thing. And then we've got Conker's Bad Fur Day. Whoo! Boy! What a video game. I won't say much, but very horny, very funny. The controls haven't aged amazingly, but it is still an icon of M for Mature games, because I think it was the very first M for Mature game on a Nintendo console, and especially from a Nintendo approved publisher, and it cannot be understated how incredible that is. And then we have the game that introduced me to Rare, Grabbed by the Ghoulies. And I made an entire video about this game, so you can go watch that if you want to. I think it is a good beat-em-up and has a lot of solid ideas, but I definitely think the main campaign was like 20-ish rooms too long, but it is still a really fun game. And I like all the bonus loyal missions. I like them so much. That's what I named the tier list after. And then we have Cameo. Cameo's weird, because like it's basically a RPG, but instead of like fighting in like battles or something like Final Fantasy, it's more an adventure game, I'll say. And it's really weird because you can transform into all sorts of different characters and stuff. I do want to play more of it though. I want to experience more of this game in particular because it interests me with some of the different mechanics it was doing. It reminds me a bit of Shantae, where, you know, you've got your basic abilities on your main character, but you've also got these transformations you can change into that are situationally more useful, and special abilities for those transformations that allow you to do very specific and useful actions you couldn't do earlier, requiring backtracking. Next we have Perfect Dark Zero. Perfect Dark Zero is the prequel to Perfect Dark, and just like Perfect Dark, it's weird, but I don't think it's quite as well put together as the original. It does have some things I think it does better. For instance, obviously the game looks better, and I think that the story objectives aren't as interesting as in the first one, but the story environments and locations do kind of make up for that. I will also say that, yes, the voice acting is kind of bad, but I mean, come on, it fits in that sort of cheesy spy thriller kind of way, you know? Really, what I think Perfect Dark Zero does best is its multiplayer mode, because even playing single player, you can play with up to like 32 bots, depending on the map, and its weapon variety, it's less varied than Perfect Dark because you don't have access to alien technology, but I really like the weapons they do have, you know? Just that every single gun has an alternate firing mode, which can be useful for whatever you need that to do. They've also, some of them even have attachments like silencers or flashlights that do one thing or another, you know, like silencer, it silences your bullets and makes you not appear on the map, but it also, I think, lowers your damage, which is interesting. Where I think it really excels is some of the fun technology that they added in, like katanas and shurikens. You do not know how much fun it is to set up a match on a tiny map, fill it with as many bots as possible, and then give everyone katanas and combat armor. So you spawn in, and you have a sword, and you die in 3 hits. Make of that what you will. The multiplayer is really, really fun, and it can allow for some dumb modes. You know, like I said, combat, the ninja mode. Yeah, just love to see it. Another one of my favorites is what I like to call Sniper Elite, where you give everyone the bolt-action sniper rifle and just see what happens. You know, some people, some of the bots will kind of just stand around and wait to see who comes up, and some of them will, you know, run around with said sniper rifle. This is why it is important to always carry your fists instead of your sniper rifle, because the amount of times I disarmed a dude, stole his gun, and then shot and killed him. Mwah. Also, some of the maps in this game get ridiculously big. Like, I'm talking huge maps. Next, we have the 2 Viva Pinata games, and I'll be honest, I'm just sticking them together because they're pretty trash. I didn't like them that much. I dislike this one. I dislike Trouble in Paradise more than Viva Pinata because it is. Look at this thing. This is ugly. But yeah, not a fan of Viva Pinata. Jetpack. It's basically just this game, but newer and more arcadier and not as. Ironically, I think it's not as fun. I don't know. It feels very basic, which was fine on the ZX Spectrum, not on an Xbox 360. And then we have Nuts and Bolts. Oh, the game everyone loves to mock. But you know what? I'll say it. I like Nuts and Bolts. Now, obviously, I don't think it's as good as the other Banjo-Kazooie, but I think it's better than Banjo-Tooie, and I liked the car building mechanics. You know, it's not super in-depth, but I liked unlocking new parts that gave me access to new jiggies. I liked building just kind of weird stuff, you know, like what kind of weirdness can I create? And being able to use those weirdo creations to explore the overworld, that was pretty fun. I greatly enjoyed that. And it still has that sense of humor to it, and it still has that sense of exploration and finding jiggies and doing varied things. Like, yeah, most of the time you'll need to use a car for it, but I like it. I do enjoy Nuts and Bolts. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, the Rare Replay Games tier list is complete. Thank you so very much for watching. If you did enjoy this list, consider throwing me an interaction. Tell me what your thoughts on these games are in the comments, and I will see you next time.